conversation. What are your thoughts on the contractual dynamic between imports and European teams? Recently, there was a situation in Warsaw where we saw two top imports leave the team or not be a part of the team for the playoff run. Had a lot to do with situations that the team and the players had issues when it came to their contract. What are your opinions about this type of situation?
Man, this is a tough one, and I think you mentioned Royal Club last year. I think it's more, that was a more publicized event, but I think it happens more commonly than people want to think, especially at the lower levels. Royal Club got the publicity because they were a top 10 team in Europe, but this happens relatively often, and it could be small things where you had a contractual agreement to have this. You get there and it's not always that case, and when that happens, I see both sides. I think it is there's obviously situations where the imports are at the fault and they didn't fulfill their contractual agreement too. You have to represent the club correctly. You have to show up and improve the team and be a positive experience for these non-paid players, especially in amateur club situations, right? You have an obligation to do interviews and represent the club in a very positive manner. That's what you're hired to do, not just play football well. But on the other side, when a club doesn't fulfill their contractual obligations, I think the player are at a disadvantage. Hypothetically, I don't do my job. I don't play well. I don't represent the club well. I'm fired immediately, right? Sent home, easy, right? But on the flip side, when a club doesn't fulfill their obligations, what resources does a player actually have? You know what I mean? The player is at such a disadvantage from a resource. They could be in a country where they don't know anybody. They don't speak the language. They don't know the legal system. They may not even have the proper work visa or work visa at all. They could be on a tourist visa. They could be on a student visa. But they may not even have insurance in case they get injured and they don't even have insurance. You know what I mean? There's so many disadvantages that a player has, and I think I don't have a solution, but the only thing I wish I would have had, right? When I started in France, I've from a contractual standpoint, I've come a long way. That first contract in France, I didn't know what I was doing. It was my first time ever playing in Europe. I didn't even know the travel laws. I didn't have the proper visa. I wasn't a legal citizen, in a resident in that regard, and I had no idea. And part of it is my fault. I should have done the proper research and found these things out. But it would be awesome to have a resource that every import it has access to, and these are the things that should be in a contract. Make sure you're a legal resident or you're on a work visa. Make sure you have insurance. These, especially those two things are the biggest things. But if you're fresh out of college like I was and hopped on a plane 3 weeks after graduation, you're so ignorant to that thing. And it's my fault too, but it'd be awesome to have a resource, and I think the only way to really go about it is to educate these imports and have some type of collective, the extent would be the extreme would be like a union, right? To have some type of unionized setup where you have some type of representation if the club doesn't fulfill their obligations. But I think the step before that, what you can do as an individual, is to reach out to imports or educate yourself on the system and make sure that these basic things that are so important are taken care of. If they're not, leave immediately. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how the legal representation would be if those things, especially for an American, being a non-EU citizen and not having the proper documentation to do anything. So I guess the only solution or the only thing to help progress this is imports really educating themselves on what the basics of a contract should be, because none of us have agents, we're our own agents. What the basics of a contract should be, making sure that the club fulfills these basic things, and if that's not the case, leave. And make sure other imports know that this club is not doing what they said they're going to do. And having a network for imports to, hey, avoid this club. They don't treat you the way that you should be treated. That there's not a professionality between this club. they don't give you the things that you contractually agree upon. Because I don't know if a player has any leverage besides literally leaving.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, obviously, even outside of maybe not leaving, but there's been situations where I've talked to players and coaches, and even myself have been in a situation where, a team was late paying me. So I had to, I'm not playing until I get paid because we agreed to me being paid at a certain time. Those type of situations, you're like, that's not what you want to do, but you have to be able to take care of yourself when you go overseas and you play in a foreign country and you're dealing with people who might not have the same values as you have about your situation. I think you really hit it on the head. Like, I hate that I have like ideas of what I want to say, and then when I'm listening to you, you make so much sense. I want to continue talking about what you're saying. There's got to be information. The biggest obstacle that imports face in playing abroad is information, resources. Where do you find out? You go look at a team's online page, it's all going to be good. Like, who has a website where they only have negative things about themselves? Like, it's not going to be a negative situation. You go search their Facebook page, it's all positive stuff. Even if you were to go to their database profile, Podium, the Euro players, it's going to be mostly positive reviews. Because say you're a player who had a bad situation, if you say something negative about that team, you're one person and they have the full force of an entire team organization to basically badmouth you and even blackball you out of your next contract. So therefore, like you said, the dynamic is really strange because the power all lies within the team. A team can hire a player, treat the player badly, player tells other people, but his reach is so limited.
Right. The only leverage, like you said, the only leverage they have is literally not playing.
And then that only goes so far. I played in a situation when I first came to Finland, we had a horrible situation with our imports. After the season, we told people about it. We wrote on Euro players that the management was the issue, not the team. But as long as that management was there, the team was not going to be something you wanted to be a part of. You know what happened? They got another 10 imports the next season. They continued going like nothing had happened. And the reason is because they found players who hadn't seen the reviews, who didn't do their research. They told these imports, we played with some guys last year, but we're a great organization. And the import said, okay, sounds good. I'm coming. Nope, the import didn't call me. I didn't get a message. They didn't ask me how the team was. And I would have gave them an accurate assessment of what happened. But that's what we really need. I mean, we're talking about this as a thought. There's not really a solution, I think, right now between this. But for imports, the biggest thing is to get informed. Make sure that as an import community that we talk to each other. We tell people about situations happening. People are constantly sending me messages, and what they ask is, what is this team like? What is it like playing in this country? And if I have personal information, I let them know. If I don't just say I don't know. I redirect them to somebody. Everybody knows somebody. I've never played in Austria or Germany, but I know almost 50 people who have.
Right.
And I trust their living experience over that team written review online. I just do. That's me personally because I've lived that life. I know that when you play on a team, when you do an interview for the local sports paper, the things you say are nice and you come off as great. And then when you go back into your apartment and you're talking to imports, you're like, damn, really wish that they didn't screw us over in this situation. And that information only stays there. Because if you go online and write, this team screwed me over, that team is going to do everything in their power to, anytime you try to get your next contract, they're going to contact the team and be like, how was this player? They have all the power right there. An organization is always more powerful than an individual. And as imports, as both players and coaches, you have to realize that you're not an individual. There's other guys out there that can help you, and they're your resources until there's something similar to either an import database or import union or something to that effect.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. And that's the only way for imports to really educate themselves is to talk to prior imports and really get an honest view of the club. But it'd be nice in the future to progress to a point where you have some type of resource, like a unified resource, and some type of, even a step further, like you said, a union or something where you, if something goes wrong, you have some sort of representation. But I think that's way down the line, because then you're talking about not talking about playing amateur sports anymore. You know, you're talking about truly being a professional and having some type of your payment go to this payment. And so, but for now, education and just the power of knowledge would be the best case scenario.
Yeah, definitely. Last thing I want to add about this is, I mean, the information would be awesome, but obviously there's a situation. I talked to a head coach in Sweden the other day, and he brought this up, and it just really resonated with me. Is he was asking a local player, like, hey, we'd like to make sure you sign like your commitment contract for next season. And this player told him, like, coach, with me and you, man, my word is my bond. Like, I trust you. I trust that you're going to take care of me and make sure I don't get screwed over in the situations we're in. That's where an import is really needing the most. These teams that, when you talk to a team, they stay in contact with you. They give you little tidbits of information about stuff that you didn't even know or think to ask about, and you create that trust level that, you know what, I can trust these guys, because even if there's a contract at stake, I know that they're going to honor it to the best of their abilities. Once we can get in that situation where that trust in football, and that's what we're really missing, is a team could be like, okay, we're going to pay you this, and then when you show up, they pay you more money, or they're like, we're going to put you in a house, and you find out it's like a 5-room villa with jacuzzis. I'm not saying anybody's living like that, but you get these situations where the team can like do more than what's expected, and for that, it goes a long way, because players are going to tell them, like, you know what, when I was there, they treated me with the best way that you could be treated. And that's how you build that.
Those clubs are definitely out there too.
Yeah.
Those clubs.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to come off as like, oh, teams are always trying to screw you. There's some clubs out there that they will do you right. I mean, when I lived in Italy, we lived on the beach in Rome. It was freaking awesome. And it was unexpected, because I've also lived in like shoe boxes in Europe. So with that being said, like, building that trust, that community, if we can get that knowledge out, these teams that are treating imports right, if we can have people let other imports know that, hey, this is where you want to go, this is how they treat you, we can get a better view of what teams are like, and maybe even change the way that contract situation goes. If teams are doing what they're supposed to, they're having no problem getting players to their club. But these teams that aren't doing what they're supposed to, there should be something enforced to make them have to work harder, to make them have to elevate their standard of living for these players, to be more true to these contracts. And I don't want to go too negative, so I'm going to stop it there. But I really think the information, sharing that information and having a resource for it is really what we need to continue to strive towards right now.
I agree.